Okay, so we're looking at benchmark question number 10. It says the value of y varies directly with x. If x is equal to 3, then y is equal to 21. What is the value of x when y is equal to 105? When you see the word varies directly, you want to think proportion. Set up a proportion. And it's helpful if you use the units, known, unknown. Now, you may be familiar with words, known, unknown table. So what we're going to do is, for units here, they didn't really give us any words to use. What they did give us was they gave us variables. So because they said y varies directly with x. So x is equal to 3. This is a y. And they also told me another y value. Okay, so I'm going to start filling this in. So I'm going to fill in x, and I know one of my x values, it's 3, and then I don't have another x value, so that's going to be my question mark. And now I'm going to fill in for y. That's my other unit that I have, and I know when x is 3 in the table that y has to be 21, so that's a known value. And then I also know another y value, 105. So what I'm trying to figure out is when y is 105, what is the value of 3 based on this known ratio? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply and divide. Cross multiply and divide. So the two numbers that are connected in my calculator, that is what I'm going to multiply together, which is why it's helpful to set this table up. You know which variables you're going to multiply, or numbers. So I'm going to say 3 times 105, and then I'm going to divide that answer by 21. Divided by 21, and it tells me that x is equal to 15. So x equals 15. So now I'm just going to go to my answer choices, and the only answer that is 15 is J. Question number 13, what are the domain and range of f of x equals negative 37? Okay, so if you remember that this is another name for y. So what I really have here is I have y equals negative 37. Okay, so it's very helpful for me if I know what the graph picture looks like, because now I can find domain and range. Okay, domain is how far left, how far right, and range is how far down, how far up. So it would be very helpful if I had a picture, but I don't have a picture. They did give me an equation, and I can now use my calculator to figure out what this graph of this equation looks like. So I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type in negative 37, and I'm going to hit graph. Now, I'm going to notice that because of where my graph window is set up, I only go down as far as negative 10 on the y-axis. So I'm going to do a window adjustment. It says that my y value has to equal 37, so I know I've got to go at least that far down. I'm going to actually go to negative 50, and instead of counting by ones, I'm going to count by fives. And so I'm going to hit graph. And what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a HOI line, a horizontal line. And in my calculator, I know that there are arrows actually on both ends because it's going forever. Now, I need to figure out if this is discrete or if this is continuous. They did not tell me that I am leaving out any x values, or what I'm counting only requires whole numbers to be counted. They just gave me an equation. So I'm going to assume that I am using all real numbers. So now let's look at A. A says all real numbers, but it says greater than or equal to 37. Well, I'm using every number to the left and every number to the right, so this part makes A not the correct answer. Okay, 37. I am not only using the x value of negative 37. I'm using 0, I'm using negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, so B is not the correct answer. And if I look at C and D, they have all real numbers, all real numbers. You may also see on a quiz or a test that double R, so you want to remember that. So now I've got to pick between C and D. Okay, so it says for range, how far down does it go? Well, it looks like it's all at the same level. It goes down to the same number, and it doesn't really go up. So my range says all real numbers greater than or equal to negative 37. So that means I'm using negative 36, negative 35, all the way up to 0, and all of my positives. But if I look at my calculator, my line isn't going up. It's just staying at one flat line. So I'm going to kind of go to my table and see what I see. And what do you notice when you look at all of your y values? They're not increasing or decreasing. If I keep going up, look what my y value stays. So now I'm going to look at my negative x values. And if I look at some negative x values, what do I notice? That my y value is all the same number. And what does that number happen to be? Negative 37. So it doesn't matter where I'm at for my x value, my input value, my output value is always going to be the same number, negative 37. So I only have one number for my range, and that number is negative 37. It's not going to be greater than or equal to, because that would imply that I'm using more than one y value. So C is out, which means the correct answer is D. Okay, looking at number 15, it says 2 customers went to a post office to buy postcards in large envelopes. Each postcard costs the same amount, and each large envelope costs the same amount. The first customer paid $12 for 14 postcards and 5 large envelopes. The second customer paid $24.80 for 10 postcards and 15 large envelopes. Okay, so we're going to kind of set up 2 equations. We're going to say customer number 1 and then customer number 2. And this is going to be a system of equations answer because they both have a common x value and a common y value. So I'm going to say that my postcards that both customers paid, that's going to be x because they paid the same amount, so they're going to have that x value in common. And the y value is going to be the large envelope. Because again, both customers paid that same cost for an envelope, the same y value. So they have this common x, y value, which means that their lines are going to intersect. So if I can write the equation for both, I can figure out where they intersect using my calculator. So we're going to pay attention to the first customer. She paid $12, so that was her total. And she paid 14 postcards. Well, what did she pay for each postcard? I don't know, that's x. So I'm going to say 14x. And then she had 5 large envelopes. So she paid whatever this cost was for the large envelope 5 times. So that's going to be 5y. Well, what operation do you use to get a total? You use addition. And so now I'm going to rearrange this. So I'm going to say 5y is equal to 12 minus 14x. And the reason why I'm subtracting 14x is because that's what's going to make this 0. I'm already adding 14x's here, so I've got to subtract 14x from both sides. And then I want to divide by 5. And I'm okay with it not dividing evenly because I just want to get a y equals equation. So now I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do some division. So I'm going to type in 12 divided by 5 and see if that fraction simplifies. And it doesn't, so I get 12/5. And now my next fraction I'm going to type in is 14/5, but that 14 is negative. And it doesn't simplify, so I'm going to have minus 14/5 x. So there's my equation, y equals equation for customer 1. Okay, I've got to do the same thing for customer 2 using that information. So it says the first customer paid $24.80. So that was customer 2's total. If we added up the cost of the postcards and envelopes. But this customer bought 10 postcards, so 10x, and 15 envelopes. So she paid for the large envelope cost 15 times. So we're going to say 15y. And then again, to get a total, we have to add them together. And now I'm going to rearrange and make this equation be y equals mx plus b, just like I did for customer 1. So I'm going to have 15y equals $24.80 minus 10x. Because to move the 10x to the other side, I have to subtract 10x from both sides. I'm just not showing that work here. And then I want 1y, so I've got to divide 15 by itself, which means every other number in my equation gets divided by 15. So I'm going to have y equals, and now I'm definitely going to my calculator now because I have some decimals and I just can't do that math accurately in my head. So 2480 divided by 15 is going to be this, but I'm going to make it a fraction, so I'm going to do math, frac, enter, and it's 124 over 75. So these must be equivalent fractions, just like 2/4 and 1/2 are equivalent fractions. And I'm going to do the same thing for the next fraction. So I've got 10, but it's a negative 10 divided by 15, and that's going to be a negative 2/3. So minus 2/3 x. Okay, now that I have my two equations, now I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type both of these in. So I'm going to type in 12 fifths minus 14, clear that out, let's start that again. 12 fifths, arrow out, minus 14 fifths x. There's equation 1. Now I'm going to type in the second equation. So I'm going to have this fraction, 124/75 minus 2/3 x. And again, I'm not worrying about this information. I want to get both equations in so I can graph them and see where they intersect, because where they intersect is where they have a common x and a common y value, because both customers paid the same for the postcard and they paid the same amount for an envelope. So it's graphing it very slowly, and they intersect here. And so now I want to find that intersection point. So if you want to find something from this graph screen, press second trace, and we got to look at our list of options. I want to find the option that's telling me I'm going to find where they meet, because that's where they have a common x and y value. And that word where they meet is called intersection, intersect. So I'm going to press option 5, and then I'm going to say yes, use the first equation I typed in, use the second equation I typed in, and then guess and give me my answer. And the answer where they intersect is the ordered pair from my calculator, 30.35 and 1.42. So this would be my x value, and this would be my y value. So I've got to figure out what these mean. These are costs. So x is the cost of the postcard. So the postcard cost 35 cents. And the envelope cost $1.42. Now I'm going to read my question, because now I don't know which answer to give. What is the cost of each large envelope? Well, if I remember, the large envelope I said was y. So what was the answer for y? It was $1.42. So the correct answer is A.